Did you know you can build great spelling skills in your kids without ever making them memorize a spelling list? In this video, I'm going to show you multiple resources and strategies to help you do just that. Kids need two things to become great spellers over time. The first thing is reading a lot. So this first strategy is easy. Encourage your kids to have a love of reading by reading to them regularly, providing lots of great, rich books for them to read that they really enjoy, and let them reread their favorite books 50 times if they want to before moving on. Rereading is an excellent way to become better readers and spellers. The second thing is their brains need to learn to recognize and organize common spelling patterns. One resource that is great for this is Letterland cards. Initially, these Letterland cards are used for teaching reading, but let's say that you've already taught your child reading or they are self-taught, then they're excellent for you to use for teaching spelling patterns. Letterland cards show images and tell stories about different letters, sounds, and combinations of letters that make different sounds. So here, for example, we have Dippy Duck, Annie Apple, there's also Mr. A to differentiate between long and short sounds. They even have explanations for when vowels change their sounds, and other crazy combinations like OW, OU, and OW, OW. If you want to take a closer look at what these Letterland cards entail, go ahead and take a look at the description. There's an affiliate link there that you can click and see for yourself. So, as your children start writing, you want to let them use inventive spelling. Don't spell things for them. That's a hard thing to do because kids ask a lot. How do you spell this? How do you spell that? So a way that I've handled that situation with my own children, especially my daughter who's older, is by first explaining to her that it's important for her to sound out the words and to use what she knows about spelling to spell. But sometimes, once in a while, she might get stuck. What we do when that happens, for example, is one day she said to me, "Mommy, how do you spell out?" And I said, "Well, what do you think? How does it sound?" And she just felt stuck. I redirected her to consider what patterns she knows that say that sound. And she went and found ow and ow. As a result, in her inventive spelling, she actually used this one. That's something that we will conquer later on, but she is using a logical pattern, and over time she will sort them out herself, which one goes with what word. Let's say that you have OU and OW up. Another way to build out this concept of OU and OW and what words go with them is to build a word list, or a word wall as some people might call it, but specifically for these letter and sound combinations. As your child builds out their word list for the sounds OU and OW, for example, they can begin to collect them in a word journal. So here my daughter has hers, and over time we have done different things. And here, for example, she has words that are modeling that all have the A with a magic E. But now let's go deeper. The first question we must answer is, what does my child actually need to learn at this moment in his or her spelling phase? To answer this question, you just need to take maybe 20 minutes every month to take a look at different samples of their writing. This could be anything from a list to a story they wrote to a letter they wrote to somebody. All of it is valid. Once you have that writing, like this for example, make a simple chart of the types of spellings that they are doing incorrectly, with two columns. One column with the word and the way that your child spelled it, and another column showing the word and how it's supposed to be spelled, underlining the part of the word that they spelled incorrectly. Once you've done this, you can more easily look for repeated patterns that are coming up. In my daughter's case, when I did this just yesterday, there were many different patterns that I noticed, but there was one that really stood out more than the others. So I decided to tackle that one first. The other patterns I can tackle throughout the month. That's why I'm saying that this is really something you only have to do maybe 20 minutes once a month, more or less. So the pattern that I noticed in her writing was the WH. While, when, where, all of those words, she was not spelling them correctly. So the next step is to take those words and create cards that have some words that have the spelling pattern and other words that may not have the spelling pattern, but that can be easily confused for that spelling pattern. These cards can be simply index cards cut apart. They could be even, if you want to make your life even easier, you could just use sticky notes that are the size that works for you. So once you have that aspect ready, you can ask yourself the second question. How do I let my child's brain do the work? So a lot of spelling curriculums, what they do is they've already done the work for the child of sorting out the words and of identifying the patterns that they find in words. But what we want to do is make the child's brain do that for them. That will make the learning stick more and become long-term memorization that they're actually going to apply in their writing and not just memorize it for 5 days from now. In order for their brains to do the work, this is a way that you can approach the process. You have the cards that you created, and you can read through the cards with your child. So once you and your child have read through the words, you can start the categorizing process. Now, if this is your first time doing this, you're going to want to model what this game looks like, turn it into a game, and so you might make groups first. The way I start this usually so that the kids get the concept quickly is maybe by doing groups that have to do with the beginning letter or the ending letter. Or the groups that all have the letter B and the groups that don't have the letter B. Once your child gets that idea, turn it over to them and let them create their own groups that you have to guess. As a result, you're using the words a lot. It's reinforcing their reading skills, and it's also making them observant of spelling patterns in the words that they're using. So in this case, when I did this with my daughter yesterday, she did a pattern for me. And then after we did that, I said, okay, now it's my turn. And I did the pattern that I wanted her to notice, which was the WH when it says W, or the WH when it says H, and the H words that say H, okay? And so I had 3 groups, and then she got to figure out what the groups were, and I reminded her to use her eyes and her ears to help her figure out my groups. One last note to make about grouping. When your child does it or when you do it, there really is no wrong answer. So they may group things in ways that you never thought. Maybe they're going to group things by what the word means. So maybe they're going to group things by verbs and nouns or other things. So after we've played this a lot of times I'll have my daughter go ahead and circle or highlight or trace the letters that may be making different kinds of rules or sounds. But now we've arrived at our third question. How do I connect this learning back to a real context? One way I do this is through written songs or poems that we have posted in our learning space. They're songs that we've learned together, written together, made observations about together, and they don't necessarily have to be words that have a lot of those patterns, but they also can be. So for example, if you want a resource to help you think of songs and poems that you might want to be teaching your children over time as a way of having those patterns available to the kids, 2 books that might be helpful for you are Phonics Through Poetry and More Phonics Through Poetry. These books basically have different poems that target different sounds or spelling patterns that you might be looking for. To take a better look at that, go ahead and take a look at the affiliate link in the description below. So then what do I do with these songs and poems? There are different moments where we become detectives and we search for words with those patterns throughout our learning space and through books that we may have been reading. And with the words that are on the poems and songs in the room, she can highlight them if she wants to or trace them. And she's looking for those words in their real context, which is a written work or piece. Or maybe it's in a list that we've made together. It really doesn't matter. And then going back to this word journal, she's made lists of words that she's found with those patterns. So for example, here, a long time ago, she had been looking for words with OG. She looked for words with ORE and OOR. Now, just to clarify, when I say to search for the words around the room, I'm not saying they have to be the words that were on the cards. What I'm saying is that they be words that have those spelling patterns. So if you're looking for IR words, but you didn't have a card that said bird on it, that's okay if they find the word bird in the books or in the poems and they put that on their list. That's just going to expand their ability to categorize more words and have access to those rules and those words correctly spelled. Now going beyond that process, you want to make sure that your child remembers that they can always use their word journal and the words around the room as resources when they're not sure how to spell a word or when they want to remember what patterns could be used to meet the sounds that they're trying to find in a word. So going beyond these 3 questions and cataloging your child's learning so that they have access to it often is being able to play with the words. If you're going to have your child do this, I highly recommend that you give your child a list of choices of how they can do it and let them choose which strategy they want to use to work with their words. So for example, if they want to build words with letter tiles, with stamps, Play-Doh, chalk, etc. At this point in the process of playing with the words, this is really an awesome opportunity to bring out their different learning styles, especially the kinesthetic. So I highly recommend thinking of things like Play-Doh or using salt or cream in a bag, whatever you might want to use to let them touch words physically and think about their shapes and their sizes and everything else. For older kids, you might like to add the ideas to the list of creating word searches, crosswords, games with words, that they can create their own things with those words and that give them a different facet to it if they would like it. However, if you have a fifth grader who wants to make words with Play-Doh, why not? So the result of this process will be an increasing accuracy in your child's natural daily writing over time. Like all things, this isn't a magic wand. This is something that takes time, but you will get results. Now, if after hearing all this you still feel like you would do better with a spelling curriculum of some type, I highly encourage you to look carefully at those spelling curriculums and look for something that does organize words into spelling patterns and isn't just random lists that might be connected to vocabulary or something else. Because spelling is about spelling patterns, and your kids will learn them much better if their brains have a chance to think about them and organize them in that way. But even if you do choose to use some kind of spelling curriculum, still ask yourself the 3 questions and consider how you can let your child do the work instead of letting the curriculum do it for your child. If you've liked this video and it has added something to your homeschool journey, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel, give the video a like, and even leave a comment below. What strategies from this video have helped you to improve your child's spelling? And also, what are some things that you need help with in your homeschooling journey that I might be able to help you with? Thank you very much, and have a nice day.